Attendance Plus is there. We have loaded all of your course attendance dates for you all. So those are ready to go. So if you want to follow Brett as he's doing the training, you're more than welcome to do that. Or you can just kind of sit and watch. We're going to record it and then we'll share this out with everyone as well. So I would like to have Brett and Sadi introduce themselves. I guess I should introduce myself as well before we get started. So I'm Candace Calhoun Butts. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost for the Division of Student Success, and really kind of taken this initiative on to roll this out to the entire campus. So thanks for being here. Sadi, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we'll turn it over to Brett and let him get started.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Sati, and I work as a product manager with the Division of Student Success, and I am the point of contact for the Attendance Plus as well.
Brett?
Awesome, thanks so much. My name's Brett Sellers with A Plus Attendance. I'm the primary point of contact, so any kind of questions you have that can't be answered internally will generally come to me as well. So you may see my name on some emails, and I'll be taking you through the instructor faculty training today, and we'll also dive into a little bit about what the students will see from various aspects of the system as well. And if there's nothing else, I can go ahead and get started.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for being here, Brett. He is definitely an expert in the system and can answer lots of questions. So we appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. So thank you all for joining. Go ahead and share my screen. All right, so we're going to start off here inside a typical course inside of Canvas at UTA. And what you're looking for in the left-hand menu here will be something like A Plus Attendance. Now, this is a demo course, so we have a few other attendance entries, but you should be looking for A Plus Attendance. Now, there are some steps if that's missing. I think you'd probably have somebody internally look at that if that was missing. But the first thing you do is go ahead and just select that. And if it's the first time you've opened the A Plus Attendance LTI, then you're actually going to see an authorization screen pop up from Canvas. It's fine to select authorize. All that's doing is saying that it's okay for us to allow you into the LTI with your UTA user permissions. Now, this is the typical landing screen that you'd work on day to day. Our demo course here just has a single student in it. But if we go and look at how this looks for maybe a typical course with a lot of students in it, and this is our demo system I'm just jumping over to. So this is how it may typically look if you are coming in with a lot of different students and a lot of sessions already loaded. Now, as Candace mentioned earlier, these dates and times, they've been preloaded in from your SIS system. So there should already be a schedule in there. And a good way to see an overview of the schedule is to go ahead and select the sessions link at the top here. And this will reflect your calendar in more detail. Now, again, we have very limited information in this demo course. I jump across to our test system here and click on that. You can see we have a good reflection of the course schedule. That's really the first thing you check, is that your course schedule looks correct. And if it does, then you're really set to already start going to record attendance. So if I click on today up here, that's going to bring me to the current week. Now, for a course that just has a single course section in it, this is all you'd need to do. All you'd need to do is come in, you're already ready to go ahead and start recording attendance, so you can go ahead and select the column header. And this is a gotcha. Once you know to click on the column header here, the date and time of the session, you'll never forget, but it can trip people up because we don't have something in here saying click here to record attendance. So just be aware of that. You go ahead and select the column header here, and it takes us into the attendance recording screen. And from here, there's a few different options. You can go through your class roster one by one and mark people with attendance. So we'll mark the student has attended and we'll put a comment in there. Well, actually, there's no comment for that. But if they were absent or late, for example, you could say had an appointment or something like that. And then you would select save, and that would be one way to manually take your attendance. Now, the other option, if you're doing this manually, is using the fill blanks option at the top here. And the reason that this is really helpful, I'm going to jump over to our demo system here again, is if you can see that all of your class is there and you don't want to go through each student individually, and just go ahead and use the fill blanks option at the top. So we could mark everybody as attended and then potentially work backwards. So we could say that Jillian actually is sick today, Susan's missing, no explanation. And just bear in mind that our demo system here, the attendance statuses are a little different to what you'd see in your system. So this fill blanks option can be a very speedy way to manually take attendance, or at least as a starting point. If some systems out there mark everybody as attended by default, this is another way of doing that just manually, very quickly with a couple of clicks. So once you've got the students marked, go ahead and select save, and that's your manual attendance collected. The other option is using student self-registration codes. So let me just clear this out. So at the top of the screen here, you'll notice there's this codes link. Now the goal here is so that if you are using this option, you do not need to navigate to specific sessions or click around the system. You simply open A+ attendance and select codes. And a little bit of background here, excuse me, this allows you to give something to the students that the students then use to register their own attendance. There's a variety of options here. Some of them are very easy to facilitate from the faculty instructor view, but somewhat open to fraud. And then there's some that are a little bit more of a burden, but very difficult for the students to be fraudulent with. So I'll show you the two extremes here. The first one is a static code. And this means that for each session, let me go ahead and just create some more sessions here quickly. So you can see here we have 2 sessions for this class today, and each session has its own distinct code. Now, every student in the class will use the same code, which is where the fraud concern comes in. But from the faculty or instructor side of things, it's a very easy option because you can provide this code to the class without having to open Canvas. You could get this code in advance. You could get a list of them for the upcoming week. Simply put that into your teaching material at the beginning of the class or up on the projector, and the students can enter that code and have their attendance marked. So not having to open Canvas or put Canvas or this up on the projector, is really streamlines things from that attendance collection standpoint. But it's very easy for students to share this code amongst themselves. So the next level of fraud protection here is you do have the capability of manually controlling when they can use the code. So by default, it's set up to be 15 minutes before the class starts through till the end of the class, which is quite a broad window. But if you would like to use the static code and take control of when they can use it, you do have that option by using this manual control option. Now, again, we recognize that stopping and doing this mid-class is not ideal, but if you did want to, and if there was a natural break point in the teaching material, then you could stop and open the code window for 1 or 2 minutes. And this makes it a little bit more unpredictable and difficult for the students to share the code around. So those are the two most common options. You can also set your own custom time window in advance. Currently, there's no way to apply this to excuse me, all sessions, but that is a feature we're looking at. But if you want to set this in advance and then take the code to the room, then you can do that as well. But we recommend starting with the default time entry window because that's probably the most streamlined for the faculty and instructors to be using to start with. Now, obviously, sharing that code is a concern. So we have some other options here as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these do impose more of a burden on faculty and instructors, but they are very difficult to be fraudulent with for the students. So the first one is you can do a rolling alphanumeric code. So we change the setting at the top, start the rolling code, and we now have an alphanumeric code that rolls over every few seconds. Now looking at this, 10 seconds feels like a long time. It's actually quite difficult to type that in. So you can slow that down. If you have students in the room who need some special accommodations, or you just find that 10 seconds isn't long enough, then you do have the capability to extend this. Again, the key thing here is you have control of how this is being run inside of your class. If a student misses the code, they simply just need to enter the next one that pops up. You can also use a rolling QR code. So we change the selection here, start the rolling QR code. And I should mention that the burden here for you as faculty and instructors is this is tying up your projector as students are coming into the room. And that may be a concern for you. Now, it's still probably, compared to taking attendance manually, it's probably still a lot faster, but we do recognize that it's yet another thing to manage at the beginning of the class. So with the QR code, there are some challenges. We have seen out in the field that when this is used, if you're using a projection screen that has a black border around it, that can disrupt the detection of the QR code. And then there's other things as well, like reflections in the room, if there's poor contrast on the screen. So we recommend that if you want to use these rolling options to minimize any kind of issues you may have, you may want to try and start with rolling code or QR code. So we change that selection at the top. And this gives students two options to record their attendance. Both of them are changing every few seconds, depending on what you select. But it really minimizes, if there's a reflection on the screen that stops the QR code, people can just go ahead and enter the alphanumeric code instead. You can start and stop this multiple times. If you take it off and then a wave of students come into the room, then you could restart it. Now, the other burden here is if students come in late, then obviously you've now using the projector or screen for teaching, so you may need to come in here and manually mark students as late at the end of the session. Now, when you're using these, and I'll show you the student view in a moment, when you're using these options that generally involve a projector, we have this privacy screen that pops up automatically. And this is just an attempt to prevent any student information being flashed on the projector as you're exiting these QR codes or rolling codes. And you can turn that off simply by selecting the button. There's also an eyeball up here, and that can turn that off and on as well. Now I'm going to use our demo system to show you how this looks to the student. So just note that what I'm about to show you won't reflect your system with the attendance statuses and so forth. But if we go into our demo system here and select today's session, go ahead and select codes, and we're going to start the rolling alphanumeric or QR code option. Now for a student, students do need to come into Canvas to start with. They can't just scan the QR code. They have to come into Canvas first. And that's so that we can authenticate them. So this is a student view inside of Canvas. This works in a browser. It works in the student Canvas app. There's no separate A+ attendance app required for this, which should minimize disruption as you get students familiar with it. This is just because I'm in incognito mode. So this is the view that students have. You could ignore this absence request function for now. I don't believe that's turned on. But if we go ahead and look at the students' code entry portion of A+ attendance, you can see that the 11 o'clock session this morning has a blue link with a question mark. And that reflects that this 11 o'clock session this morning currently has a code window operating. So the student simply selects the link, and they're now able to enter the code or scan the QR code. Again, just to stress this because it can be a gotcha, students do need to come into here and select scan to read the QR code. They can't just open their default camera and then do that, and that's so that we can authenticate them. I'm going to go here and enter a code. I'll wait for the next one to roll over. So N4PJK, select submit. The student's attendance is now recorded. Student can select continue. And now the student has a few different ways to check that it took. It generally will, but a lot of students would like to confirm it. So first of all, they'll see this tick indication next to the session that indicates that their attendance has been recorded. In addition to that, they can go ahead and view their attendance history. So if we scroll down to the bottom today, we can see that attended code has been registered. You'll see this duration and comment. This is not activated in your system, so we're going to ignore that for now. Now back to the faculty or instructor view, if we stop this code, close the code window, take it off the projector, and go ahead and open this session, we'll see that Matthew, the student that I just impersonated, has registered his own attendance. Now at the end of the session, the system can automatically mark everybody else as absent. Let me just confirm that that is the case before I put that into the recording as definite. Yes. So at the end of the session, you do not need to do anything. The system will automatically go ahead and mark anybody who did not enter a code as absent. Now, a special note here, if nobody entered the code, then nothing will happen. It will just leave the session as blank. And that's an important distinction. It means if for some reason the class did not occur, class was cancelled, you don't need to worry about it. The system will just leave the attendance as blank, and that will not impact students' attendance. So there's a lot to digest there, but once you have decided the method that you would like to take attendance with, it is reasonably quick to get into here. You go ahead and open the LTI. It's going to go ahead and resync all of your information from Canvas across to us. Then you're either opening a session and recording attendance, or going ahead and using the code option that you would like to use. And that there is all you'd need to do other than managing this up onto the projector or screen. This would be all you need to do in order for your class to be able to record their attendance. So some other functions in here, I just need to check something. So if your class just has a single Canvas course section in it, there's nothing else that you need to manage with respect to recording attendance. Excuse me. If your class has multiple Canvas course sections, then you have the option to take attendance for them separately. So you'll see a number indicator up here indicating how many sections are coming over from Canvas. And generally sections may meet at different times in different places, so you do need to take that attendance separately. So you can go ahead and select which section you would like to take attendance for. And then the schedule and the student roster will change to reflect that particular section. And this is also important for the codes. And there is a note here. It does say to please make sure you've selected the correct section before running the codes. But that's another gotcha that can trip people up. Now, as for a great question there, does the system record when students use the codes? So it does. If you go into your sessions view here, and I'll scroll down to that session we just ran it for, you'll see this little arrow on the right-hand side of the session. And on here, there's multiple options, but the one relevant to this question is the attendance history. And this allows you to see the date and time that a student entered their actual attendance. So if you do need to get a little bit more information about when they did that, you can come in here and see that. And then you can see this one here as well, there was more modifications. So anytime a change is made to a student's attendance, there will be an entry in here. So if your class's attendance has been modified by someone else, maybe your department has a policy of handling sick notes and marking attendance centrally, then you could see any modifications in here. And the other thing this is really helpful for, and I'm really bad at this, if you get a couple of days ahead of yourself or a week ahead of yourself, you get to next Monday and wonder why there's already attendance there. This can help you untangle that. It could be somehow attendance got entered a week ahead of the actual date, for example. But to give you a detailed view here of a session with more information in it, if I jump back over to our demo system, and we'll go to today's session. So you'll see here that this is our demo system with the student that just registered the attendance themselves, and it says code self-tracked. We have the option of recording the IP address. I don't believe that's on at UTA, so you can ignore that. But this allows you to see the exact time the student registered their attendance for this class. And if we go to another session with more information in it, you can see this session here was used a lot for demoing, so you can see all of the various changes that was made to a student's attendance for that date and time. So some other features you have here, in addition to recording attendance, one of them is you can run reports. So on this reports link here, you have some course level reporting. The first one being a simple digest of how many attendance statuses the student has accrued. And over on the right, you have a total of how that student's attendance is looking. It's worth noting that you don't need to dive into the reports to see that. If we go back to the attendance collection screen here, you have a running total on that screen as well. So at a glance, you can see which students have the best or worst attendance. Back to the reporting, we also have date of first and last attended, attendance by date, if that's of interest. And this gives you the capability to modify the actual columns. Wherever you see this drop down arrow pointing at a bar, this means that you can extract the report. So if you have some sort of procedure where you're tracking last date of attendance internally at course level or by department, then you could come in here, run that report, and then simply extract it to Excel. The next thing we'll look at is the attendance setup here. Now we have a message at the top here. This can give you, I think this was set up more when it was being piloted, but really it just tells you the different ways to set up your scheduling. Now, if you're not from the maths department, then currently this import attendance sessions from your information systems should be checked. And that means that it's pulling your scheduling information across. Now, we've already done that for all of the courses, so you shouldn't need to make a change there. Then the key thing in this screen that you may want to use is the Canvas gradebook integration. And this is where you can generate a single assignment into the Canvas gradebook that is generated based on students' attendance. Now, there are a few different calculations available here. The first one that we'll look at here is penalty rules percentage impact on final grade. Now, a key note here, this does not work on weighted assignments in the gradebook because we end up with a circular reference. But what this is doing is it's saying if a student has 2 or more absences, then go ahead, figure out what 10% of the current final grade is, and then make this assignment a negative value to adjust for that. And we'll send you a URL with examples of these. It's very difficult to go through all of these in detail on a training course like this. But just so it's in the video, if you go to learn.aplusattendance.com and then search for assignment, you'll see record attendance as assignment grades. And this has an example, it has a scenario and example for each of the 4 rules that you have the option of using here. But I will go through them briefly. So that's a percentage impact with a tiered structure. You can have lates equal a tardy or an absence. We also have proportional. This is very similar to some other systems out there. You can say that we're going to create an assignment that's worth 150 points in the gradebook. If a student's been to 50% of their classes, then they would get 75 out of 150. We also have a tiered penalty structure for an assignment points option. So we could say a student gets 150 points for attendance, but once they miss 3 classes, we're actually going to start deducting those points after 4 and so on. Now this is manual. There's no repeating option here. So for every tier, you do need to add a rule. And that's a design decision. It just makes it easier to manage, but we realize it does cause a little bit of extra clicking and manual input. And then the final option is this accruing. So this is where we could say we have 100 points and it's split out over 100 sessions. And that means as a student attends each session, they'll get 1 more point. So their assignment builds over time rather than starting at full value and then being deducted. But again, it's difficult to visualize these on this call. So we will refer you to this training document that has an example of how each one is set up. Some example of attendance, and then how that's calculated based on the way that it's set up. The other option you have here is the select additional instructor users. Actually, and let me take a step back here. You can turn this off and on at will. So you may decide not to turn this on at the start of the class. You don't need to don't feel like you need to have the assignment integration set up in order to go ahead and start taking attendance. You can come in here later on and turn that on. You could wait till the end of the semester. It's really up to you, but it's not a prerequisite in order to start recording attendance. The other option here is select additional instructor users. If you have any users in your course who are TAs or a role based on a Canvas TA, you have the option of giving them access to record attendance on your behalf. There'll be a list of checkboxes here with those users' names, and you can go ahead and select that. They will then have full instructor access or full faculty access to the attendance system. And that's really all there is to it. There is some more things that may come up that you may not necessarily need. One of them is if you ever need to make a modification to your schedule, by default, your schedules are locked. But if you find that you need to make an adjustment to the schedule, that can be unlocked. And then you can make a change either by going edit session or simply dragging and dropping. You will see a message about detaching. Again, we'd refer you to a training guide that gives you more information on that. It's a fairly unique situation. It's more just to be aware that that can be done if needed. And that's really all there is to the system. It's fairly straightforward. Again, all you need to do to really start taking attendance is select these column headers or run the codes, and then the students would need to know where to go as well. But Citi, is there anything that I've missed or any other parts of the system that I should show that I may have forgotten? Oh, yes. Sorry, just saw that you might be muted as well, Citi. So if we look at
Yeah,
yes.
so hello, am I audible
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Yeah. So Brett, I was saying that were you able to go through the part where how it will be visible to the student and how it will be visible to the student if the faculty keeps on rolling the QR code?
Yes.
Okay, then I think that's it, but there are some questions that we have in the chat that we can take.
Yes. So the first one we looked at, now the second one, can we look at what it looks like in the Canvas gradebook? Yes. So let's do that. I'll go ahead and make sure this is set up. Might just do proportion because we don't have much data in here. Why? So we called that attendance from A+. Now if we go over to the gradebook, you should see a column that says that. The attendance from A+, out of 100 is 80. I don't know why that's showing manual. But that's the calculation there. So we're just creating a single assignment. And then one important note that I nearly did forget is if you want to have attendance in your gradebook, but you don't want it affecting your grade, then you could go into the assignments and weight it as 0%. So that gives you a visual indicator inside the Canvas gradebook, but it's not hard tied to your grades. So for example, we could go group attendance. Edit. I know there's a way to weight these. I'm not super familiar with Canvas assignment groups weights. Anyway, so you would weight this as 0%, and then you could drag the attendance assignment into that, and that means that your gradebook won't be affected by the attendance assignment, but it gives you that column in the gradebook as a reference point. And then so Austin, Erin, that's a good question. If you wanted to start using this now as an experiment, you shouldn't need to adjust your existing sessions. They should be sitting there with this no data entered status, which does not affect calculations. It removes both the denominator, how many sessions it's been recorded from, and the student's attendance count. So you should be fine just to leave those blank.
Brett,
Yes.
I'm sorry if this was answered already, but Dr. Karen had a question. If the system records when a student signs in,
Yes, so if you go to the sessions view up here, you can go to the specific session you're interested in and go attendance history, and it's going to show you the dates and times that every change was made. So for a student, if we go and look at the one I demoed here, you'll see the date and time. So at 10:18 Central, not a user, which means code self-tracked by the student. So you can see the exact date and time that occurred. Now, something to be aware of, and that faculty do not have access to this, but if you are in a situation where a student is disputing something that happened with the code self-registration, there is a tool that your admins can use called the attendance codes log. And again, this is just to be aware of that this exists. And what this allows your admins to do is go ahead and look up a student. Oh, actually, let me get to my demo system. So if Matthew reaches out and says, hey, I tried to enter the code, I'm one attendance from passing the course or meeting some sort of criteria, then your admins can come in here and query what a student did. So they can see, did they even try and enter a code on a date and time that they claim? Were there any code windows open? What did they type in? So this can be quite helpful in settling any disputes like that. But again, this is an admin function. You can't access this as faculty. And then I'll just reiterate the student view. The students have this option, just timed out. We're always tripping over security. So again, this is the student view inside of Canvas. They can do it in the Student Canvas app. But they'll open A+ attendance and they can either enter a code. They can see their attendance totals for course and section if you're using sections. And then they can also expand this and see what they were given on a certain date and time. In your system, the duration and the comments are turned off, so you can just ignore those, but students can see how their attendance was recorded. There's no other separate app needed. It's all based outside of Canvas or the Student Canvas app, so browser or that existing app. A good question there. If you have a 100% attendance requirement and a student is chronically late, yes. So you do have the option of using, so let me get back. So there's a status specifically designed to mark a student as late. So if we go into here and clear this, you have the option of going here and marking a student as late. And then at the moment, the way that that's set up, we can actually just see here. At the moment, that gives a student, it gets a little complicated here. So if you're doing proportional attendance, which is based on this percentage, it's not going to impact their final grade. But So proportionally, it's not going to impact their final grade because at UTA, lates are scored the same way as attendance in our system, and that can be changed. But you do have the option of saying, after a certain number of absences, we're going to knock them down to, say, 80% out of 100, or we're going to deduct 20, sorry. And then you have this tardies tick box down the bottom. So this will look for the lates. So you could say, if they have 5 lates, we want to treat that as an absence, then we're going to deduct a certain point score. I don't think that addresses your question exactly, but it gets very close to that. And the other option is, of course, that you could have the attendance, the gradebook assignment and Canvas weighted as 0%, and you could also make adjustments later on. So you could come in here and say, I just want to see which students have a chronic amount of lates, and then go ahead and make a manual adjustment in the gradebook. So you have a couple of different options there. Are there any other questions or any other areas you'd like me to revisit?
And that's okay if you don't have them now. We will send out an email with the recording to not just this group, but others that were unable to attend. So thank you so much, Brett, for being here. We will have an email address. Sadi, can you share with them which email address you'd like to send questions and concerns to? And we can address them.
Absolutely. So generally, it would be support@aplusattendance.com, and I'll send that over an email afterwards as well.
Oh, Brett, I'm sorry. I was referring to Sadi. We have an
Okay.
internal.
Yes, perfect.
That's okay. No worries. You're always so helpful. I appreciate that. But Sadi will send our internal email. We just don't want you to be bombarded by some of the same questions, Brett. But
Perfect.
we'll share our internal to UTA email address for our faculty to ask any questions, and then we'll troubleshoot with you, Brett, if there are any concerns as faculty jump in there.
Wonderful.
So we just had 2 more questions, Brett, in the chat.
Yes. So we can send the guide on how the calculations work. It's very difficult to go over them in here because I don't have the scenarios to kind of demo it properly. Towards that 6%. The 6% penalty for missing classes, you could use the impact on final grade for that. You'd need to figure out what your threshold is, but say if they missed 1 class, then they lose 6%. If they missed 2 classes, they miss 12%, and so on. Again, we realize it's a burden to write these out manually, but it just gives people the most control. And I guess you could keep going all the way to 100%. And then the other option, are there tutorials for each of these steps? So yes, we do have the Learn guide here. Now, this is learn.aplusattendance.com. Now we have sent, and we will resend, there's a curated list of the options that have been turned on for UTA. So one of the issues we have with the support guides for our system is we need to cover all of the permutations for how it can be used. So it can mean that you may come into here and you may see things that aren't really relevant to how the system's being used. For example, the LTIs should already be turned on for your courses, so you wouldn't need to follow this step. So we'll send over the curated list. I think I have it in an email somewhere of the relevant options. And then, yes, you can come in here and it will tell you how to use the QR codes, how to run an attendance report, and so on. So we'll send those across. Perfect. Well, if there's nothing else, we could wind it up, or I can take more questions as well if anyone has them.
I think this is great. I was actually muted as I was talking, Brett. So apologies about that. I wanted to thank you so much for your time and just being an expert in the system and a great partner. Sadi, we'll turn it back over to you for last steps and future trainings.
So thank you so much, all of you, to be able to attend this training. I hope it will give you more control over the attendance that you guys plan on taking for your classes. If there are any questions, I have dropped my email ID in the chat. And if you want to go through the steps immediately, I have also dropped the website in the chat. And if there are any questions, please let me know and I will be of assistance. Thank you, Ashley, for that message.
Absolutely.
All right, then. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Have a
all.
nice
Have a
day,
great
all.
day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.